Good morning. It's my honor to chair this session and introduce one of the rising stars in both psychology and academe, Dr. Cohesion Tsebe. She's a sports psychology lecturer, researcher, and a module leader at the University of South Africa. She's also an award-winning clinical psychologist with a special interest in sports psychology. She holds a PhD in psychology from the University of Fort Hare, in which her thesis was titled, The Impact of Mindfulness, Acceptance, Commitment, Approach on the Performance of Softball League Players, a Case Study. She's also studying towards a Master's of Business Administration at UNISA, which will put her in a good position to rise through the layers of academe, to VC even. She is the team psychologist for Softball South Africa national teams, an affiliated member of SASCOC High Performance Psychology Working Group, and the Limpopo Academy of Sports, an entity of Limpopo Department of the Sports, Art and Culture. She's received various awards such as recognition as one of the 200 young South Africans under the sport category by Mail and Guardian in the year 2021, which is indeed an achievement. A special recognition award finalist in the 2021 Momentum Sport Awards, and she's also been identified as an influencer by Nestle Milo South Africa, attending to promote mental health in sports. She's also received an award from the Limpopo Department of Sport, Arts and Culture for advocacy and participation in sports psychology. As an added extra, she was also, in 2014, a student in clinical psychology at the University of Limpopo, where I taught her psychological acceptance. You know, in those days, she was somewhat like me in approach, and that's quite interesting for students to be. I can assure everybody that this is really a rising star, and obviously, we all wish her well in future. Her presentation is now Sports Psychology for Coaches, What Coaches Can Do. Cohesion?
Thank you so much, Professor Nell. What an honor to be introduced by you as a former lecturer. Alrighty, I'm going to take you through a very important topic of sports psychology for coaches, what coaches can do. I do know with an experience I've had with working with coaches, there's always misconceptions around what do psychologists do in sports. And some of the misconceptions include that there's going to be conflict of roles, perhaps also the psychologist most likely going to dictate what they have to do. So now it's just to broaden the knowledge and understanding of what coaches can do in terms of this subfield of sports psychology. My key focus areas, it's three themes. I'm going to focus on coaching philosophy, of course sharing certain steps that coaches can follow to be able to develop a comprehensive coaching philosophy steps. And of course, also focus on some of the key psychological factors that are also informed in sports coaching. And lastly, I'll focus on a key topic of mental skills training. Well, the relationship between sports psychology and coaching is very important in the performance sports industry, precisely because if you look at coaching and also sports, as an entire field, there's a lot of psychology being involved. Coaches, as leaders, they play a very influential role in the development of athletes. Remember, they're involved in each and every level, or rather development stage of athletes, which requires a certain set of rules. They are tasked with an immense responsibility to ensure that they comprehensively develop athletes according to their different needs, according to their talent, and also taking into account their strengths and weaknesses. While their relationship with athletes influence on both the skill and development, and of course the psychosocial outcomes of sports participation. Well, As I've previously said, that there's always misconceptions around the role of sports psychology, what should happen. Well, it's very important for the coaches to have a sense of awareness on the psychological variables that could impact on athletic performance. Remember, psychological variables, we're speaking about motivation, anxiety, team cohesion, and other variables which empirical evidence has shown to be playing a very important role in athletic performance. Here's the catch. For instance, the manner in which an athlete could deal with an anxiety has capacity to either impede or somehow improve their level of performance. Well, it is a fact, and I think yesterday Prof. Leon van Niekerk did, when he contextualized about sports psychology in the South African context, that a lot is being done. So much effort is being put on the physical aspect of sports performance. However, little has been done in terms of integrating mental training program into sports performance. Physical aspects are very important and become more valuable when combined with an effective mental training program. All right, the first theme that I'll look at is the coaching philosophy, which is primarily a set of beliefs and principles that guide the behavior of a coach. So somewhat they dictate the manner or the approach that a coach view experiences in life. So building an appropriate coaching philosophy, it's actually a process. It's not once time process, but it's a process that requires sustainability and also the coach to revisit and align those particular philosophy. And also significance in building coaching philosophy is the coach to be able to have a sense of self-awareness and also prioritize coaching objectives of winning and development. Just before we touch base into all these 8 steps that are important in building a coaching philosophy, we need to also acknowledge some of the factors that facilitate the process of coaching philosophy. Well, it has been indicated that firstly, formal education also does play a role in understanding and also assisting the coaches to develop an appropriate coaching philosophy. Recently, or rather over the years, we've seen the growth of different institutions, or rather the certification of coaches, of coaching licenses from different sporting codes. We do have in football, there's also the international one affiliated with FIFA, we have Conf, and of course SAFA. Of course, different sporting codes do have different attachments in terms of how do they certify and be accredited and licensed coaches. Also, it has been noted that an experience as a coach also does play a role in terms of assisting a coach to develop a proper coaching philosophy. Your experience throughout the years as a coach, and of course learning from others, also can assist coach to build a proper coaching philosophy. And lastly, experience as an athlete also, to some extent, do influence in the ability and the approach for coaches to develop a better coaching philosophy. With that said, let's us focus on the first step of building a coaching philosophy. While developing a proper coaching philosophy, remember that as a coach, leadership begins with you. Right? The first step is to identify your values. A value is something to which you give your worth to. Somewhat, values provide guidance for decisions we make every day as individuals. In the context of coaches, it also taps into how they view themselves. So, for instance, as a coach, you should identify 3 values that you identify with. Does integrity matter? You can include integrity, honesty, and also hard work. To say, as a coach, at a personal level, I value integrity, honesty, and hard work. And of course, that will be followed by establishing a personal belief system. The belief system are demonstrated or usually seen through the action of a person. If you do believe in hard work, your action and behavior will absolutely be aligned to that. Once, as a coach, you've identified your values and have also developed personal beliefs, it then leads to the third stage. To say, okay, fine, you've identified your 3 values. For instance, as I've given an example, that integrity, honesty, and also hard work as your key values in life. And it allowed you to also develop a sense of personal belief system. It then means that you combine or integrate both the belief system and the values so that you can be able to get to a personal mission statement. For instance, a brief personal mission statement is to say that I commit to abide by the values and the belief system that I've identified as a coach. And it's very important for coaches to be very transparent and clear and intentional in setting these particular stages, because you'll see the golden thread as I continue on how it leads to having a very comprehensive and solid coaching philosophy. The fourth stage entails determining personal standards of performance. It is important for coaches to build newly created personal statement that will be able to assist them to determine their personal standard of performance. Remember, here we're speaking about you as a coach. To say, as a coach, at a personal level, what are your standards of performance? Let's say, just for example, you say as a coach, your standards of performance, you'd say, okay, academically, I like to grow. I give an example to say what also contributes is having a formal education. To say, okay, I want to obtain a certain qualification in football and coaching. And then you also have your own physically, that, okay, I want to become fit, I want to eat healthy, and mentally, I need to be mentally balanced. I also need to, say, psychologist to develop mentally as a coach. Then you have, at this case, with this example, you have actually set clear personal standards of performance. The fifth stage, very important like the others, is that what actually influenced you or led to you selecting coaching? Why are you coaching? What inspired you? Of course, there are many reasons why coaches would share their stories on why they chose coaching. Others would believe that it's a calling, perhaps because of the way they relate to people, and they will take that interpersonal skills to say, I'll direct it into the athletic context that I'll be able to nurture and develop athletes throughout their levels of performance, be it recreational, up until they get pro and international. Are you inspired by a certain coach in the country? Are you inspired by Coach Marine? Are you inspired by a certain leading coach in the country or internationally? All of this, it's important as a coach to revisit the reason why you chose coaching. Be clear to say, I chose coaching because perhaps I believe that by virtue of being a coach in sports has an ability to fight social ills, as an example. Then that would also assist you. The following stage is to develop a mission statement for your team. You'd remember that I spoke about developing a mission statement for yourself. I think it was step 3, where you align your values and beliefs to your personal mission statement. Now step 6 speak about developing a mission statement for your team. Personal statement for yourself, remember, would be able to serve as a guiding tool. That's why I emphasize on the importance that coaches are encouraged to be very transparent and intentional. Because if your personal mission statement are very clear, it will serve as a very good guideline to identify that of the team. Because remember, they have to be a sense of alignment. If you say you strongly commit that you're going to abide to being honest and respectful as a leader, as a coach, surely these qualities must be aligned also when you put them in the context of a team. Or rather, when you develop a mission statement for your team, to say, For this team, this is what I put as a mission statement so that it guides you to carry out your mandate as a coach. The development of a mission statement for your team as a coach is followed by setting standards of performance for your team. You, as you also did at a personal level, setting clear standard of performance, the same thing also follows, that it needs to also be aligned to that of the team. Set standard of performance for your team. Now, this is the very most important last stage. As I've said, that it's very important to be clear, because there's a golden thread to it, that once you've done step 1 until step 7, then you integrate to write your coaching philosophy. And the interesting stuff about developing a coaching philosophy is that it's a process, so it allows you to adapt, to adjust. One, as a coach, you don't have to be rigid to say, I wrote this. Remember, phases and dynamics changes, and there should be that sense of flexibility that allows you to say that I'm making adjustment of my coaching philosophy, but still being committed and being consistent, and also making sure that it still aligns to you at a personal and team level, and also notably that is that of the best interest of the team. Okay, the second phase, or the theme of discussion, is the psychological variables in sports coaching that I think coaches should learn more about. And I always love to say that, they at times coaches are aware of this. Perhaps the terminology, it's not what is being shared about, but they've been doing this, or they're aware to say that, but today you don't look fine. Perhaps it's just linguistic issues, or also maybe not properly being said or properly being understanding. So this presentation would certainly shed some light in terms of part and some of the psychological factors that are important in sports coaching. I have motivation as the first factor. Communication, building and maintaining confidence, attention, and team cohesion. Okay, let's focus on motivation. Well, good coaches create a team environment that allows athletes to nourish and motivate themselves. Of course, for coach to be able to create this sense of environment, they should be enablers, or they should be facilitators that allows for the team environment to be encouraging for athletes. Part of it is that it's important for coaches to identify and embrace an instructive motivation. And also, coaches need to also facilitate and encourage a sense of social interactions that can tap into 3 levels: instructiveness, supportiveness, and positive reinforcement. In terms of instructiveness, it's important for coaches to facilitate and encourage improved athletes' performance by, for instance, I spoke about hard work, by encouraging the ability and also the ability of athletes being hard work and also achieving and realizing their goals. And secondly, support is important. And when we speak about support, we speak about support that is holistic, that is not one-dimensional, to create support when perhaps the team is losing or an athlete is not performing well. Support needs to be consistent in good and bad times, when there's a good performance, and also through the highs and lows practically of performance. And lastly, what also serves and facilitates motivation in team context is positive reinforcement. Coaches need to reward a good performance to individual athletes and also to the entire team. Another important factor that is highly important is communication. Because remember, you can have all the skills, the technical skills, and be talented as a coach. However, if there's no effective communication, somehow the message could not be relayed properly, and that's lead to poor performance. So it is these small variables, one can say they're small, but they are not small rather. There are these variables that play a very key important role in performance. So in terms of communication, it's important to become transparent, to become clear and honest in you communicating with athletes as a coach, because it also assists and facilitates the coach-athlete relationship. Athletes would trust easily and open up to coaches that are clear and intentional in their communication. And also level of communication, it's also varies. I think also all the variables, they varies with the developmental stage of an athlete. You know, you'll see that at times with those in adolescence, they can deal better with more instructive level of communication that comes as along as quite supportive to athletes. So as I said that, it's important to become clear because you can have all the skill, but if the communication, it's not really clear, it becomes difficult and impact on the interaction, and that's the performance of a team. The second one is building and maintaining confidence. Confidence, the previous speakers have said that from yesterday that confidence is one of the most important variable in sports performance. And there are different strategies that can be able to facilitate the building and maintaining confidence. We need to appreciate that as much as the goal could be to build confidence, it needs to be maintained. And same with the rest of the variables, that when you initiate to say, this is a sense of environment you have with a sense of confidence for athletes to instill a sense of confidence, it's important to also maintain it because it also affects on team dynamics and also performance. And there are various approaches to be able to build confidence, integration of mental preparation, such as methods such as visualization and providing support. So support is essential throughout. And also physical preparation. So it basically integrates both physical and mental preparation of sports. Attention, I'll speak briefly about it because the speaker from yesterday, the prof, also commented about attention, different types of attention. This also including that for one, as a coach, to become aware about attention, to also take into account that you can control the controllable, however also make peace with the events that you might not be able to control. Team cohesion is another important psychological variable, of which there are so many factors that as a coach you can do to facilitate team cohesion, which can be maintained throughout. Part of it includes setting realistic goals, not to be hard, because you can set standards too high, and obviously that would impact on team cohesion, because also you need to take into account that you're dealing with different athletes with different abilities and also with different personalities. Some might get it right at the first, others will catch up. So you need to have a sense of awareness that would assist you to set realistic goals. And that comes with consistency and also making praises when necessary. And also part of what facilitates team cohesion include assisting athletes to deal with the loss. Remember, as a leader also, your words, your non-verbal, how you express yourself in dealing with losses, it also does impact on the perception of the athletes and how they see the future and, of course, the current functioning of a team. So it's important to approach different events such as team loss in a very optimistic manner, in a manner that the athletes, they can still be able to believe in themselves and believe in the team. And that would also assist in moving the team to the next stage and still maintain and be able to maintain team cohesion. And that level of enthusiasm, it's important. And I know it also speaks to the philosophy, back to why did you choose coaching? You still need to portray a level of enthusiasm to say, if you're a coach, you're not enthusiastic, how would you expect athletes to become passionate about their sports, about the sporting codes that you're leading, about the very same team you're leading? So it's important to have a sense of passion that carry out and, of course, impact on the mood of the team and the functioning. There's a lot of psychological variables, as I've said. We also have anxiety, which is also another key psychological variable that can impact on performance. And some of the things on how to manage with performance anxiety is for coaches to be aware of the things they say, pre-meetings. Be accurate and direct. Because remember, as much as you're leading a team of athletes, they also need their own personal space to reflect and get into the mode of mental preparation, and so that they can be able to perform appropriately on the field. Be aware of the information that is relayed prior, during, at halftime, for instance, and post the match. They need to be accurate and technical and quite clear, because how you phrase it, it has an ability to increase performance that at times teams might not be able to overcome, and that's impede on performance. All right, the last theme I'm focusing on is the application of mental skills training in coaching, which I believe that it has been set, and I would continue just to tap into where the coaches need to know more about and understand when we say that mental skills training is important in coaching and also entirely in sports. I've spoken about goal setting. There's an abbreviation in terms of commenting and advising on what to include on goal setting. Very clear and quite, I find it very, very, very clear to use. We can refer to it as SMART, that you must set specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-specific goals. Let's say you're in a netball season, and that is perhaps runs through for a year. As a goal, each and every trimester, as a coach, you'd have your own technical goals in terms of physically where you want them to be. This is where goal setting comes in terms of in psychology, in sports psychology, to say from a psychological point of view, what would the athletes and the team wish to be? Because together in setting goals, the technical goals that align to performance, there's a strong psychology behind it, which will impact or rather determine and also influence how the team would be able to achieve those specified goals. Another important skill rather, it's self-talk. Self-talk, these are the, it's often used, and as I said that at times, perhaps there's no terminology behind it, or maybe an understanding. Self-talk, positive self-talk, to be precise, these are the talks that athletes, and of course coaches, needs to make, or rather make, before and during games. These are internal verbalization to instill positive words and affirmations within self, to say, regardless of how I feel about this particular team or a particular team, the performance of the team, or rather that of the performance, you instill a sense of self-talk. You talk positive things and information to you, because also self-talk does also assist with athletes, and of course you as a coach, to be able to have a certain level of confidence and be able to approach the game in a positive light. The third approach that I've identified is imagery, where there's an encouragement of athletes to become, to create a sense of imagination rather, about a particular game. And it does not have to be a competition. It starts from practice. Okay, fine. We're playing on Saturday. On Friday morning, the last match preparation, what is it that how are you approaching it? What are the imaginations about it? Because remember, a mental skills training, they needs to be practiced, and they can't necessarily only be attached to formal competitive matches, but they have to be used throughout in practice during match preparation and also during competitive games. The last phase, the last technique, it's relaxation, where also athletes learn to be able to relax their muscles, to be able to make breathing techniques, so that it allows them to become less anxious, or rather to deal with anxiety in a positive, in a different light. Of course, athletes do adopt different techniques to manage and deal with their anxiety. It's important also, and of course that, you know, as much as I have identified these techniques, athletes would have more of a custom-made ways of dealing with anxiety, with relaxation techniques being one of them, to say that, how do you practice it? And then for you to be able to practice such a technique, what would inform that? Remember, for example, in the event of experiencing performance anxiety, there is different physical and psychological reactions one would experience to say, okay, maybe I'm having a sense of I'm feeling anxious, maybe you're sweating and you start to shake, and then that informs that a proper intervention is important, and that's when you employ a proper relaxation technique that can assist you to deal with the anxiety. All right, concluding on the themes that I've covered on, coaching philosophy indeed you live in. It's a reflection of who you are as a coach. And as I've emphasized, that it's important to be clear and intentional and commit, because all those steps that I've shared that assist one or a coach to develop coaching philosophy, they all lead to building and creating a comprehensive coaching philosophy that will be able to assist you, and that would also be able to assist you in leading the team. And it also allows you to adjust when time needs, so that they can still be linked or speak to you as a coach, and also speak to to your team, and also your approach and style of coaching. While empirical evidence, of course, have truly indicated and have shown how important psychological factors are in performance. So it's important for coaches to become aware and be informed about different psychological factors on how they affect performance. And I have to encourage this, that it does not lie with only coaches understanding how players feel or deal with anxiety, the issues of motivation. It also starts with them. That there's also, it needs to be a sense of self-awareness in terms of how do they deal. Like I gave an example to say, your reaction, your level of enthusiasm is important, and motivation. It starts with you as a coach to say that this is what you understand, this is how you feel, and how motivated you are, so that you can be able to spread the very same feeling and understanding to the players. And that would also assist you in leading the team. And lastly, as I've said, that historically and currently in the South African context, that usually it's still focused on the physical aspect of training due to so many reasons. But it's important to integrate mental skills in performance, primarily because that a human being, and also an athlete, is made up of both the mental and the physical aspect. Mental skills training assist and facilitate the process of development, awareness of athletes, and all in all, it then leads to an improved performance. Coaches need to be open and allow themselves to learn about the field of sports psychology, what it taps into, what is the role of it, and how can they benefit from it in terms of developing their own coaching philosophy and approach, and also being able to lead a team to different phases It could be leading to a win or attaining peak performance, and of course, dealing with the highs and lows of sports performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sebi, for that wonderful presentation. Really good. Can I ask if there are any questions from either in the room or outside? Oh, there is one.
Okay, good morning, colleagues. So far on the chat, we only have one question. If somebody wants to ask a question using their voice or video, please indicate by raising your hand. But we have a question from Cassandra McDonald. She asks, at what age would you recommend coaches start integrating mental skills training? That's the first question we have. Maybe more will come through. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for that question. It has to start at the beginning of sports performance. If a child starts playing at 5 years, remember that's where you can integrate life skills, basic life skills that are age appropriate. That turns into the ability to be able to communicate, to deal with losses, because that is actually, development is a very, very important phase. So at any particular age that a child starts to play sports, I would actually personally, I'd encourage it to start at the very, very, very primary stages of entering into sports. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Or in the room, any questions? It appears that there are no questions. So thank you.
There's a comment.
Oh, sorry.
There's a comment
Sorry.
that came from Professor Grobela.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Says it's not a question, but very nice to hear a new voice in South African sports psychology landscape, Cohesion. And happy to note that you took the coaches back to the fundamentals of having a sound coaching and life philosophy to guide them and their athletes. It's a compliment.
Well deserved, I would say. Well, thank you again, Doctor. It was, again, a great presentation and obvious indication of your rising stardom in the field. So I would now like to close this session.
Okay. Please note, session 5 will start at 11. You must click on the session 5 link on the invites. For those watching on YouTube, a new YouTube live video is going to be set up. If anyone is having a challenge, just write on the chat post-closing so that we can assist you with the link for session 5, which is starting at 11 o'clock. Thank you very much.